This fella Ronaldo is a cod.
Aston Wenger's been in Japan for a year. They don't know anything about English football.
I will love it if we beat them.
This is football heritage.
Con Giovanni, incredible. Dribble, 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 dribble.
If you don't know the answer to that question, then I think you are an ostrich.
Between political turmoil, former players, transfer rumours, training ground bust-ups and an empty stadium, the build-up of this Europa League final was steeped in a unique drama. But Chelsea rose to the occasion while Arsenal froze, coming out 4-1 victors and winning their first Europa League title since the last time the fans hated their manager. What will be the fallout from this match?
I imagine we're going to see a manager sacking.
Between one of these clubs.
At least one of the clubs. We're going to see, most likely. It's funny because the manager will leave having won a trophy, having qualified for the Champions League, which Rafa did as well when he won the Europa League.
Yeah, he came third as well when he won the Europa League.
And was hated by the fans.
Well, at least with Rafa, you knew it was interim though.
Yeah, but... he
was never going to take that position. He was never going to be offered it permanently.
He was never offered it, but in the long run probably... Well...
They got Mourinho in and
They've won 2 league titles in that time, but would Rafa have won those 2 league titles if he had stabilised things? Maybe he would have. And maybe Chelsea would be on... Rafa would be the legend of Chelsea now in London and...
He'd have won a Champions League.
Well, I'm not sure if he'd want to win another Champions League, but he certainly. I don't think it's out of ordinary to say that Rafa could have won a league title during that spell that Chelsea won too, because Chelsea have this knack of, and they're currently in one themselves, but they have this knack, as we've said all season. When everyone else is underperforming, Chelsea have this weird way of coming out on top. They did it if you remember, when Ancelotti won the league title. They kind of. Man United were misfiring because it was the end of that kind of era.
Well, they lost Ronaldo that season.
Yeah, and they were... Does Tevez lost that season?
Tevez and Ronaldo went that season.
Yeah, so United were in a kind of transition themselves and they were kind of nowhere, and all the rest of the top teams were kind of just trailing away. There was no Spurs really at the time. Arsenal were kind of...
Yeah, Harry Redknapp was just kind of getting things into gear, I think. Then.
Yeah, but they were never going to touch on.
Yeah, exactly. They were never, yeah.
And obviously Man City were only coming up at that point. That was right after being taken over.
They'd just gotten top 4 then that season.
Liverpool were in the midst of Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, I think they came 8th that year.
Yeah, so there was so a weird thing happened, and then obviously Mourinho's season, that was the fallout from the Man City team that probably should never won a league title. Neither under Mancini or Pellegrini. When you think about it, both times they kind of wonder, it's how did this team kind of just won it because they threw enough paint at the wall not paint, but they threw enough stuff at the wall and some of it stuck and it carried them to a league title.
They're fortunate because Man United and Liverpool both capitulated in spectacular fashion.
Yeah,
those seasons.
In both those seasons, so Chelsea kind of came back and was there's no one else going to win the league this year. We can go in the league. Mourinho won the league, crawling over the finish line in famous fashion. They basically won the league by December and then just kind of ground out the rest of the season. And by the end of the season, their form was awful for a league-winning team.
And at the time, of course, we all thought, they're just on the beach.
It's just Mourinho. He's won it, and this is just what he's doing. And then obviously the following season, we knew what happened, and there was nobody filled that vacuum. The following season, Leicester City won it, and in the season after that, the vacuum continued because Leicester City fell back to where they normally are, and still nobody had rose up from the ashes of anybody else. And Chelsea kind of just won it by default by suddenly figuring out that, if you play 3 at the back,
it'll confuse everyone.
Yeah, it'll confuse. They want to cope with it, and they won the league. So Chelsea generally profit from these kind of absolute quagmires of seasons where teams don't know what to do. This season is kind of weird because they kind of misfired as well as everybody else.
Well, they've been a mess since at least December, I would say.
Yeah, but everyone, with the exception of Liverpool, that we'll probably get on to later on in the show, of the teams that were left in European competition at this stage, the 4 English teams that were left, they were the only team that's not in complete, what is going on with them?
They've had a really good season.
Yeah, obviously they've had a very excellent season, 97 points. But Spurs, I don't know, they've been off the boil all season. We watched, I said it for months and months, that they're going to get their comeuppance at some point, and they kind of did in the league, but they carried them to the Champions League where they're playing terribly. They were reliant on 1 or 2 players more than anybody else, Son or Kane or whoever it was at the time.
Lucas
as they came against Manchester United or laterally against Ajax. And it was just carrying them through terrible performances, and they've managed to get to Europa League, but they've been dysfunctional as everything this season. And then Chelsea finished in 3rd despite having what is it, 6 points from the last 21 or something. But
Yeah,
that was better than everybody else.
They just got third by default.
Yeah.
It shows as well that a good start to the season is half the battle. Because they were good up until about November there when they lost that first game against whoever it was.
West Ham? Was it West Ham?
No, they drew 0-0 with West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham was the first one. All you have to do is shut off the midfield, and then they have nothing.
Yeah.
Or you don't fall for the sucker punch, the rope-a-dope type.
Wolves, I think, were the first team to beat them. Because I remember they lost to Wolves on some midweek, and then it was like City the next weekend. I was like, oh, City are going to kill Chelsea here. And then they beat City.
Yeah, and David Luiz.
Yeah, had one of his best games ever.
Good times.
But they good season for Chelsea, really, when all things considered.
In the record books, in 40 years' time, we'll look at this and say, oh, City won Chelsea won a European trophy, and they finished third in the league.
And they got to a domestic cup final.
And they got
only
to a
lost
domestic
on
cup final.
penalties.
And in a year where it was where I don't know if we're ever going to have a top two get this many points again.
I hope not.
Well, yeah, hopefully not in the same guys that they've got it this season. But they'll be like, wow, that was a pretty good season. That'll go down like Ipswich in the late 70s. Do you remember the rest of Ipswich season? Do you remember Ipswich capitulating to Liverpool that season? And not winning the league, but going on and winning in Europe. Do you remember that?
Well, I suppose Ipswich remember winning in Europe pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. But the record books recognise it. It's in Bobby Robson's one of his greatest achievements of winning the European trophy with Ipswich Town. But no one remembers how wonky that season ended up for them. But that's going to be this for Chelsea. This will be celebrated in years to come by Chelsea fans, and it won't. That's the terrible thing about record books, is they don't give you nuance.
And I think that is exemplified pretty well by the actual scoreline of the match. Like, it finished 4-1, but at no point felt like they were 3 goals better than Arsenal.
No, but
especially in the first half.
Yeah, well, it was fairly even. It's a hard enough topic to talk about, because Unai Emery, as we've said all season, you don't know what he stands for. You don't know what his style of football is. And he came into this again. He played the predicted team. There was no real surprise in it.
I think Ozil was a bit of a surprise.
There's no one else. Mkhitaryan can't come because of political reasons. He can't go to Azerbaijan. And then who else can he play in the Ozil type of role if he's playing that kind of the role that would enable him to play 2 centre forwards, which is a 3-5-2, because Emery's not going to go to an old school 4-4-2. Arsenal don't have the pressing credentials to play a 4-4-2. They don't have the runners in the team really to do that, and they don't have the strength and depth to actually have people to bring on when they get tired after pressing for most of the match. So Arsenal tried to do the thing where, okay, we'll take advantage of Chelsea, their lack of pace, and that was Emery. This is Emery's forte, is to go into one-off matches and outthink the other manager. And that's his thing. He's always done it.
That's why I thought Arsenal were the favourites in this match, because you kind of summed it up in our last episode of how Arsenal have Unai Emery, the one-off match master, and then Sarri, the most stubborn man in football. A guy
who never changes his style. He plays his own. He gets his teams to play his style of football, which is very Arrigo Sacchi style, which is, okay, we're going to be solid in possession, we're going to press when we don't have the ball, and when we do have the ball, we're going to use it very wisely. And that sometimes means cautiously, giving it to Jorginho, giving it to the centre-backs, giving it to the goalkeeper, passing it around. And as I said earlier, the rope-a-dope method of drawing in opposition players, lulling them into a sense of safety, because, it's Luiz, it's to Christensen, it's back to Luiz, it's to Jorginho, it's back to Luiz, and you're going to frustrate the players. They're just doing the same thing over and over again. Let's get close to them, let's get tight to them, and then they'll just pass it over you. David Luiz will send it along to one of the wings, and then suddenly you have a counter-attack on your hands. And at Napoli, a Sarri team would have scored. At Chelsea, it hasn't happened as easily for him, but it worked 4 times in the Europa League final. That was exactly it for 4.
It helped as well, because Arsenal, just when they were defending, they looked like they just weren't even doing anything. Yeah. I think it was because we were watching it together. I remember when Torreira came off, you were saying, there goes the one guy that actually tracks back. Yeah, well, it's well known, and even Guendouzi was brought on, and Guendouzi, for all, everyone, I think everyone who likes football likes Guendouzi, because he's only 18, 19, he's got big floppy hair, he likes running around, he's the kind of, this is what you need in a young player, someone who's willing to get amongst them and do different things. Has a bit of go about him.
Exactly, but he doesn't like tracking back. He doesn't like pressing hard on players when, it's not in a advantageous position, when it's not just outside the opposition box. If it's a case of when it's outside your own box, you often see him kind of trailing slowly back. Granit Xhaka, we know about the nose-picking instance he's had in the past, and various times where he doesn't defend, and then you're like Mesut Ozil, who actually did a really good job in staying completely anonymous in the game because his job was to mark Jorginho, who had a quiet match in his own way, but it meant Ozil had nothing in the whole match. Like the closest thing he had was when I think the ball was taken off him by Aubameyang for a potential chance that was just sent wide.
But now, like, after the match as well, it's actually hard for me to decide, like, who do I want to talk about more, because both teams are so all over the place. Like,
we said all season Chelsea are basket case.
But after the match, then BT Sport had a reporter whose name I can't remember now go
He's
on
Scottish.
the pitch.
That's all I know. He's ginger and Scottish.
Dylan Levitt, I think is his name. Is a total guess from memory here. But he did quite well. He interviewed Eden Hazard after the match. He pushed him for
grabbed Eden Hazard after the match.
Yeah,
had the cameraman. If you could see it was great because I wasn't watching it was a BT Sport.
Yeah, it was BT Sport.
It was BT Sport, but the main feed of the match, which we were watching on another station, had there's the players celebrating, and you see this guy grabbing Eden Hazard as soon as the whistles are gone.
But then he pushes Eden Hazard for an answer on his future, and he says, "I think it's goodbye."
I think it's goodbye. That's the end. That's the big line that came out of it.
So he looks like he's off. Chelsea, it looks like, will not be allowed Penn in summer to replace him. They have obviously Christian Pulisic coming in as a replacement, kind of,
sort of, nowhere near the same type of player. Good player.
No,
but nowhere near.
It's a forward line that not only needs to replace Eden Hazard, but needs to almost replace him twice. You need two players.
Yeah, but they're also like, it's funny because Eden Hazard, like Sarri tried to fit him into his kind of football, which is the Dries Mertens role of being, who is also Belgian, who someone who get at the end of all these chances that they're created by rope and a dough, by bringing in the false sense of security to opposition players, pulling them out of position by pulling them close into Chelsea's half and then playing long balls or playing diagonal balls to kickstart a quick counter-attack. That's not Eden Hazard's game. It never has been. His game is to do that little dribble trick he does, scare the hell out of opposition defenders because he can get around them. If he doesn't get around them, he wins a free kick or penalty, which he did multiple times.
He won a penalty, didn't he, in that match?
Did he win the penalty in the end?
I think he did win the penalty, yeah.
Well, he took it anyway.
Yeah, he scored the penalty.
But yeah, it's just he does not work in the Sarri method. Like Sarri tried to play him as that kind of false nine role, but it doesn't work for him. So maybe by getting rid of Eden Hazard, you have the benefit of maybe fitting another player in the team that is compatible with Sarri's style of football. But then you have the secondary problem that Chelsea seemingly have decided to create for themselves of enduring with Sarri for the full season, letting him sign his own players, a la Higuain, Jorginho, other players like that. I don't remember who else he signed.
I think they were the main one. They brought Kovacic as well. That was
he was already there. And now he's likely to be sacked and replaced with a manager who does not play anything like Sarri ball. He plays a much more traditional, fairly attacking and open style of football of Frank Lampard at Derby County.
Yeah, but like the whole thing just seems like we were watching Graham Souness on TV3 or whatever they call it now,
Virgin Media
in Ireland, and Graham Souness made the point of like, I think it's too early for Frank Lampard, and I think I have to agree with that.
Yeah. And that comes from a huge amount of experience in that, because Graham Souness took over at Liverpool. Like, how old was he? Even 40 when he took over at Liverpool?
I think that was like the first thing he did post-retirement, wasn't it?
No, well, he was player manager at Rangers and he'd won leagues in Scotland
and
and done extremely well at Rangers and built a dynasty that went on to win 9 league titles. So there was precedent for him getting the Liverpool job, which was it would be the same as, well, it was the first manager at post the kind of the unstoppable Liverpool. So he was the first manager after Kenny Dalglish to really take control of the club, and it did not work out for him, and he knew it didn't work. Like, he is speaking from forget what, like, Graham Smith talks a lot of crap. He talks a lot about hating youngsters and hating the way the young players, carry themselves in their personal lives, not just on the football field. Like, he hates Paul Pogba, which is well known. But, like, he's right about this. He's speaking from a very well fought place of experience.
Yeah, so like, if he's saying that, like, even just watching Derby, I've watched them a handful of times this season, which admittedly is not a lot, but every time I watch Derby,
hate Derby.
It's not that I hate Derby. I don't really care about Derby other than that 11-point season, which is a disgrace.
But it's so wonderful at the same time.
But no, they should be barred from top division for a long time because
they have been.
It's only been 11 years. It should be 11 more
defeats.
We'll get to that. But it just seems fair. Like Frank Lampard needs at least another season of Derby because that team just didn't look like it was able to do much.
It's built on loans,
which is a key thing, I think.
And you kind of the Roy Keane thing. Roy Keane, when he was at Sunderland, brought Sunderland up. He built that side on a lot of players he knew personally from his playing days, and as well as those players that he could get because he knew he was well in with a lot of big players at big clubs. So he got a lot of good loan players from Manchester United. I remember Danny Welbeck was one of them. Fraser Campbell, one of them later on.
They got Danny Rose at one point as well.
Yeah, that might have been a bit after that as well. But a lot of big Premier League players would go because of Roy Keane's
Kieran Richardson.
Yeah, exactly, Kieran Richardson. And Roy Keane had a cachet there, and I think Frank Lampard has got a lot of that as well. He's taken some players from Chelsea, obviously your man at Liverpool,
Harry Wilson,
who's been fantastic for them.
He was apparently going to leave Liverpool actually.
Yeah, I don't think he's at the Liverpool standard. He's more of your man Hughes at Watford. He's that kind of very excellent Championship level player. Okay. Premier League
he's been linked to like Southampton and Newcastle.
Yeah, and I think that's probably his level at this point in his career. He would have to build himself up to even being like a not Harry Maguire, what's his name? James Maddison at Leicester City. He's not at that level yet. He has to build towards that level, which isn't near Liverpool at this point. But with that, you're kind of like, oh, is all of this kind of a personality thing so far, Frank Lampard? Is nothing really has gone wrong, and he's carried them through on his force of personality, on his experience, on the fact he's won Champions League titles, on the fact he's had exceptional managers that he could have gleaned some knowledge from. We don't know. Nothing's gone exceptionally wrong for him yet for him to bounce back from. The first is this Championship playoff defeat, and at Chelsea
things will go wrong.
Yeah, most likely. Even though they'll win more games than they'll lose, when they lose it'll be a bigger deal than when he loses the derby.
Even just the fact that they won't be able to sign players, that will be a stumbling block for Lampard. Like this won't be his team.
No.
Like in one way it's a free hit, but in another way, like it could all go horribly wrong and ruin his career as a manager.
And it's happened before. Like Liam Brady, Bobby Charlton, like big players who had big managerial chances, and it kind of just
Gary Neville
as well, got away from them, and then that was kind of the game. Not going back to that. I don't want to deal with that. That type of situation. But with the way you're talking about the way Derby play, and this will lead into the way Chelsea play, like they kind of reminded me of like that up and atom FA Cup team that you'd see from a lower league, kind of throwing everything at the game. And I don't think you can do that in the top game anymore. You can't do that in the top
You'll
game.
get found out pretty quickly.
Because especially with like a lot of silky skilled players that Chelsea will have, the players that keep the David Luizes of this world, the Christensens of this world, who are liable to make a mistake. They're great on the ball, but they're liable to make a mistake. And unless you've counteracted that by building in defences like Kante, famously under Conte, would be that kind of... If David Luiz makes a mistake, Kante is there to cover it up. But I don't know if Kante fits into this type of team that Lampard wants to play. So if the rumours are true that he's getting the job and it's going to be an all like Chelsea Legends team with Lampard as the manager and the first
Terry
team coach.
Cole.
Well, I don't know about Terry coming back, but Ashley Cole coming with him from Derby.
Drogba is director of football.
Petr Cech has gone back to Chelsea. It's being reported, and it's pretty well. It's a bad secret at this point. Jody Morris, first team coach. He was at Chelsea for years as a player and as a coach, and he's with Frank Lampard now at Derby. He'd go back as well. It would be an all Chelsea Legends team.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's like you said, it's a hit to nothing, especially if they're in a transfer ban season. They may as well do it. And if as we've said all season, if it is the case that Abramovich is still looking to sell the club for a lot of money, maybe sell them with it's almost a clean slate, because you can give them this chance, the way almost like Milan with Gattuso and the previous few managers, where they were looking to kind of shore things up. And if you have a fan favourite as a manager, even if things go a bit wrong, they'll get a bit extra time and they'll get the benefit of the doubt. And I think Lampard will get the same. So even if the season goes haywire, this coming season would go haywire, he'd still have the love of the Chelsea fans for when he would be finally removed, and the new ownership or the new direction Chelsea decide to go in is put in place after him. He seems like a stopgap manager more than like a long-term one. But we thought that about Zidane at Real Madrid, and look at
he won 3 Champions Leagues and
has come back again to save everything. So maybe that's in it.
Maybe Frank Lampard is Chelsea's saviour after all. But it's hard to see Chelsea actually do any way better than this season. Like, this seems like they've done as good as they could have done. They were never going to compete with Liverpool or Man City. Yeah. They've won the Europa League. They got as close to winning a domestic cup as they could. They didn't have a great FA Cup run, but you can't win them all unless you're City.
Well, that wouldn't have mattered because they would have ended up losing to Man City.
Yeah, exactly. So they've had a very good season. They're Europa League.
They've won the only thing they could have won.
Yeah, it's a good Europa League win. They beat a couple okay. So
top
Frankfurt
scorers, weren't they top scorers?
Giroud was the top scorer as a player as well.
Olivier Giroud has had an excellent tournament. It's surprising he doesn't get played that much at all in domestic competition, but was played a lot in Europe and
did quite well.
Did quite well. Won the Europa League basically. Created 2 goals.
Scored against his former club in the final, and then Lacazette and Aubameyang were up front, and they weren't able to do the job for Arsenal.
Weren't able to do anything apart from hit the ball off each other.
Alex Iwobi scored a nice goal.
Yeah, he's missed so many chances this
purely
season.
A consolation, though.
Yeah, it was, because the fourth Chelsea goal went in 2
minutes.
minutes later.
But then with this Arsenal squad,
Arsenal's a whole other thing, because we talked about Chelsea all season, that Chelsea are banjaxed. And we don't know what's happened with them and their ownerships, and the stadium is the deal's falling apart.
Meanwhile, at Arsenal,
transfer ban and Arsenal they've been through this kind of bit that Chelsea's going through at the moment. Of they have a stadium in place, they have a structure, they have a coach, like a scouting structure and a technical structure behind the scenes. They had like Raul Zanetti, and they put in all these structures in place when Arsene Wenger was leaving. And they've switched from the big time manager to somebody else, and they're working through that, and they're adapting to their ways. And it seems that they've gone backwards this season.
Yeah, like they finished fifth under Wenger in that final season, but they finished fifth again this year. But they did spend. They brought in Torreira, Guendouzi. They brought in Socrates, and they brought in Leno, and that was ridiculous.
Leno and they're expected to have Leno. It was in some ways ridiculous, but in other ways it was Czech's last game. He did cry a lot after not winning the.
I don't question his professionalism.
He played well. He made 3 or 4 good saves.
But I just think play your best keeper in a final. That's just.
No, yeah, there is logic to that. Absolutely.
It's a final, play your best team. But so they brought in those players, 4 players that were seen as being able to fill in the holes in the team. Yep. I think Emery's gotten unlucky in the fact that he's had to use Mustafi as much as he's had this season. He's not had a right back this season really. Bayern's been out for half the season.
Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a midfielder, exactly. Wing back. He's not he has done well when thrown on it, but again, Ainsley Maitland-Niles started the season with a broken leg.
He's even been using Monreal as a centre back a lot for this season.
Yeah, he played centre back a lot in the Europa League final.
He's had Ozil, who he's not really sure what to do with. He's
dropped him for 2-3 months this season.
He's got 2 strikers there that are both expecting to be playing every game, and they don't click together well. There's no system that fits both of them in.
Well, they seem to get on well, but it's more of a system thing.
I'm not telling that they're not friends or anything. They might be best of pals off the pitch, but on the pitch they have no chemistry. They don't play well together, generally speaking, especially in big games.
Valencia semi-final.
And even at that point, I think Valencia was a bit of a gimme.
Yeah, Valencia kind of thrown in the towel by the time Arsenal ran away with it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think Emery's had an unfortunate. It's still only 1 season. I think he's earned his 2nd season, even though he hasn't got Champions League football. You think he doesn't stand for anything? I don't think that necessarily matters as much when you see that Arsene Wenger stood for the same thing for 20 years, and that just eventually brought him further and further back from the chasing back. So, but it's doing something different. He is a stopgap, but I think he's a stopgap that can, if given a couple of seasons, bring Arsenal further forward than where he found them in.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because Arsenal are hamstrung by their ownership. We said before they're the Mike Ashley Newcastle United of the top
But I think
teams.
he can put up with that.
But he can, but that's not the point. You don't put someone in there because they'll do. And that is what Emery is. He'll do. He had just been let go from Paris Saint-Germain just as Arsene Wenger had announced that he was leaving. This is ideal. We have a manager leaving one club and our manager leaving, and he can just come straight across in the train to come to London.
But I think that if they bring in someone else, they could start getting angry with the board. They could be demanding money, and that might actually cause change. Yeah. But I just don't think it will. That just leads to them becoming Chelsea.
Yeah, which all those trophies and everything. But I get what you mean. With what you're saying, you make a good point that Arsene Wenger was the same for 22 years, and that eventually that led to his demise. You live long enough, you see yourself become the villain, and he did, because he didn't adapt to the times really that well. Or if he did adapt to the times, he didn't continue the strive towards perfection that he had in his early years, and as a result of that, the team drifted, and then because of the inertia above him in terms of there was no one to ever cross Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, nobody did anything. And there is an inertia now of a different kind brought about by ownership that doesn't really care, that didn't attend the final, that made no comment to the final. All that happened was an automated email was sent off at the moment Arsenal lost the Europa League final from the ownership, and that's not to say they had any interest in it at all. And when you have that, and you have a manager who's accepting of that, and is like, okay, I've no pressure, I don't need to worry about this, and you're like, well, that's not going to work, because Emery doesn't have any pressure on him. He's not won a league title in his career. He's not going to win one at Arsenal anytime soon. He's won cups, so he has that kind of side to him. He's on a good wage at Arsenal, so he's like, I can rock this out for a few years, live in a nice city like London, manage a big club like Arsenal, not have to do anything really, finish 5th, 6th, doesn't really matter. And that's not a good position for any type of team that's ambitious, or any type of fans that are ambitious. If you're, and no offence to these clubs that finish lower than Arsenal League, if you're Leicester City and you watch Club, well, be competent, absolutely competent, do everything right, not do anything that wrong, not upset anybody, and just kind of be dour and be depressing, make the same mistakes, kind of not really fall out with anyone, but not really get on with anybody, not excite anybody, and you finish whatever Leicester were going on course to finish in the league, 12th, 13th, and then you're like, no, this isn't good enough. That was an active board, an active, interacting with the fan base and knowing and the players and everyone involved in the team, and saying, this isn't good enough for our team, we need to do something different about it. Get rid of Klopp, sorry, you're a nice guy and everything, but bye, we're going to try and do something different, try and move to that next level again. And they bring in Brendan Rodgers. Now, that could have been a ridiculous appointment, but at least they're trying. At Arsenal, they're not trying anything, and leaving Emery in there is a kind of sign that this guy doesn't feel that he needs to do anything more than he's done. He feels that this has been a successful season.
But who comes in then?
That I don't know.
That's the thing. I saw a lot of Arsenal fans on Twitter, which is obviously not the greatest source of intelligence, but they were all Allegri was trending on Twitter last night. I was like, I don't see why Allegri would go to Arsenal in this current state. The Arsenal fans almost need to think a little beneath themselves now. They have to get used to that, because they're out of the Champions League for a third season in a row, second season in a row. Yeah, third season in a row now. Yeah. If you're not in the Champions League, you're not going to get a Champions League manager. Correct,
and you're not going to attract the right players, and your revenue is not going to come up, and Arsenal are going to have a financial loss this year, and which is unheard of. And they've been usurped as the third biggest club in England by Liverpool in recent years, because of the revenue Liverpool have got from their better league positioning and their accomplishments in Europe, and their better commercial performance as well, which is something that Arsenal always kind of had over other teams because they're just better at it. But that's fallen away as well. And you're like, well, what are Arsenal standing for now? Because they no longer have that Arsene Wenger brand of football, of passing, attacking, on the front foot football. That's not Emery's style at all. It never has. You look at the Europa League final and he was playing very cautious defensive football and sending not long balls, but sending balls out to the wide to be crossed into nobody. And that was this is very rudimentary, elementary football. That's not the Arsene Wenger style. And some would say, oh, that's good, you're getting away from the old style that didn't work for 22 years, but you're moving to a worse style that still isn't going to work. And I had this conversation with you before about if you're a fan of a team, what do you want? If you can't win, if you obviously want to win things and play well and be loved and love your team and everything that comes along with that. But if you can't have that, what's the next best thing? And when you're at Arsenal, currently there's two choices. You can not play very well with expensive older players that are past their best, that don't have any more potential to give, that are going to cost you stuff, and there are no hope for the future. Or you can go do something radical, do something different, promote youth, try and play football in a different way, in a positive way, create that hope, because at the very least, you can aspire to something. If you're not going to win, that's the next best thing, is to have a style and have something you're happy with, and at least you have that to fall back on. And under Emery at Arsenal, I never thought that was possible. And then Emery's recent interviews, he did one at El Mundo, and he was saying that he felt happy at Arsenal because there was less pressure, less stress. I was like, well, that's good in some ways, that you're not under the same type of stress and mental anguish that you were at other clubs, but in the other way, that's kind of testimony that maybe it wasn't Arsene Wenger for those 22 years that was a lot of the problem. Maybe it was the club itself, especially in the lateral years, that were like not putting enough pressure underneath them or on him to perform and do better. And I don't know what could come in and do that. The only thing you could do is bring in someone young, hungry, with new ideas.
Mikel Arteta.
Maybe Mikel Arteta.
That is a sliding doors moment, I think. Because like, who knows what Arsenal season could have looked like with Mikel Arteta.
It probably, like, I can't think it would have been any better than it is, but
could it have been any worse?
Yeah, because in some ways, ending the season in the way that they did, in just capitulating, get, what was it, 3 points from 21 or 4 points from 21?
Like, it feels like they really threw away top four more
They
than
did.
maybe any other side.
3 or 4 points. They had the lowest of the top six
like
challengers.
that defeat at home to Crystal Palace.
And they had the easiest run in if you
Yeah.
were looking at the league position of the teams they were playing. Quite clearly, and they had a few home games. They were saying, "Oh, Arsenal's away record." Fair, like, one, they shouldn't have that. You know, that shouldn't be an excuse. Just having a bad away record, you shouldn't have a bad away record.
Like, they lost at home to Crystal Palace and they drew at home to Brighton. Like, those 5 points right there, that alone cost them.
Yeah, they only missed out on it by 1 point.
Yeah, so
like, it's crazy, and that includes like mistakes made during the season, like missing a penalty in the 90th minute against Spurs, which would have switched the whole thing around, and Arsenal would have been in third, I believe. Although you can't say that with certainty, but you know, it would have been a game changer. Like, Spurs probably wouldn't have recovered. They didn't really recover from that match. They didn't get many points between then and the end of the season. So, like, it would have at least eliminated Spurs from the equation. But yeah, they're a mess. Like, they're making, like, Tottenham have issues. They may lose their manager, and I know we'll probably talk about that not this week, but in other weeks, depending on the result of their Champions League exploits. But you know, they're going to spend some money this year. They're in the Champions League next year. They're going to, with the run they've had, they're going to attract a level of player that Arsenal won't attract with their new stadium as well. Liverpool obviously are going to go from strength to strength and only increase this season. They're still not at the peak of their powers yet, even though maybe in the league they are. But in terms of the player they can attract, they can still attract a good level of player. Man City, as we know, is going to spend. Man United are looking to rebuild in some form, and they have money to spend. And Chelsea, you know, can't spend, but that's the only solace for Arsenal. But there's only 4 places for the Champions League, so it's looking like it's fairly obviously going to be Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, or Spurs and Manchester United, with Chelsea and Arsenal laying outside it if they're lucky. And it's not a good place to be. Like, I was looking at the players that played for Arsenal in the Europa League. Very few of them are going to be at the club soon. Like, you're looking at who's there. Like, if offer comes in for a side Kolasinac, he'll be sold. As far as I'm told, that Koscielny is being let go if he wants to leave the club. He's got a year left in his contract, and he wants more than 1 year offer, and Arsenal have a 1 year offer extension on it. He wants more than that because he's the age he is and the injury profile he's had. He wants to leave the club. Socrates is getting on as well. Will he be kept on? Like,
I just don't see
the assets in the team are like Hector Bellerin. He'll probably stay because he's injured at the moment, but he's an asset of the team. He probably available for sale. Granit Xhaka, I think that experiment has failed. It's been there 3 years. It's failed.
I just don't know who's actually going to come in and buy these players. Like, when I actually look at the, like,
well, that's been Arsenal's problem, is they sell at a loss almost all the time.
I see this as an issue among multiple of the top 6. Like, I see this with Man United. I can see this with Chelsea, although Hazard the exception.
Yeah,
is that, like, I find it hard to believe that any of them will have a handy time with selling any of their players. Like, at Arsenal, I think Lacazette could probably go for some good money.
Yeah, for good. Like, there is saleable assets. Like, Kolasinac had a great seasons in the Bundesliga, and maybe his style of football isn't suited to the Premier League. I think he could go back to the Bundesliga.
I look at Ozil and I think, who buys him? I look at
I think Ozil they have to take a loss on. Aubameyang's age profile,
I don't see who buys him. Like,
again, it would either be it would have to be a massive club who wants someone for 1 season, like Real Madrid, as they've shown in the past they are willing to do that, or it's somewhere like China. You know, that is the options, unless Arsenal take a loss, because but I think that, like, some of those players, the saleable assets, they'll probably try to hang on to. At least going to be the smaller ones that they're going to get rid of, but at losses.
Well, like, they're already losing the likes of Danny Welbeck, Aaron Ramsey, Carl Jenkinson, all on a free, which is, they're just throwing away money. Yeah,
they threw away the money. It's all gone. Arsenal's transfer budget, if David Ornstein is to be believed, which he normally is 40 million.
Which is a couple small signings.
Well, it's a percentage of, But that kind of puts you into the way the club is being managed, because the club has huge revenue. Like, that's not even equivalent to their matchday revenue for a season. And obviously television money is a multiple of that amount. So
They get about 140 million just for wherever they finished in the league.
like there is, you're saying they're losing players for nothing, and they are doing that, but they're also clearing a fair amount off the wage bill doing that.
There's merit to that, but I think when
But probably the
Arsenal-
saving they're making on that's that 40 million.
Yeah,
it seems that nothing, like we talked about this a lot earlier in the season, but Arsenal's the only club that's not received in the I think in the entire Premier League era has never received external funding. It has always been internal funding they've received for player recruitment. Player wages.
I think of the top six, and I might actually say Liverpool, maybe more so just because they have so little that they need to change. But of the top six, I could see Arsenal's average starting 11 for this season being as close as anything to what it'll be at the first game next season.
I see what you're saying, but I can't believe that it can sustain that long, because it has been a running joke with Arsenal for many years that they could do like 6 changes in their first 11, like that for at least 4 or 5 years. It's been like that, and gradually it has changed, but mostly it's been due to losing players on free transfers and retirements that have caused those 6 players to drop
Since
out.
Van Persie left, really.
Yeah. Like they signed they signed 2 big players in that time, or initially Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez, season after season, and they were saying, "Oh, it's this game changing. Arsenal can finally compete with the big players," and they haven't. Like Lacazette was a kind of one of those gimme signings at the end of a window when they're like, "We have to sign someone. We have to make this a big signing."
And he almost went to Atletico.
He did. He would have gone to Atletico if they hadn't had a transfer ban in place. But he went to Arsenal, and maybe, he made the mistake in the long run. And Aubameyang was a complete, Dortmund wanted rid of him, and a lot of other dominoes had to fall in place for him to go to Arsenal. And in the end, they bought him for huge money that has ended up with them making losses. Like, they haven't done well in the transfer window, and I don't think they're going to do much better, but there is a hope that they can do what Louis van Gaal did in his first season and kind of clear out a lot of the dead wood that
Man United.
Man United. Clear out a lot of the dead wood that David Moyes was kind of suffering with, and maybe that can happen this summer. But at the same time, I don't see. I get what you mean, that a lot of these players could still be there come August, come the new start of the season. I hope they're not, because it's just going to be a poor season then, and then that's at least one other team knocked out of any type of exciting title race or any top 4 race.
Yeah, I just see like you talk about the
They've
inertia.
nice kids next
You
year.
just talk about the inertia earlier, and I just see that being the case in the summer, that they just don't do much. They sign a couple decent players who fit into the team, and they fit into the team well, but not enough to push them up to anywhere near Liverpool or Man City, but maybe not even near top 4.
Yeah, they more so than any other season, and we're not even still in May recording this. No more than any other season have I thought that there is a chance that the hegemony of the top 6 could be broken up for the first time in 10 years. That we're moving away from there being a clear division between the teams that can actually potentially create a title race and the other teams in the league. It wouldn't be surprising at all. What was the difference in the end? It was
about 10 points between 6th and 7th.
Yeah, I think that could be a lot closer next season.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see
a Leicester
a Wolves, a West Ham maybe with Manuel Pellegrini just break into that top 6, even if it is just to finish 6th.
Yeah, and and teams like Arsenal or Chelsea, maybe we'll see about Chelsea, but not having enough firepower to carry them through, and potentially Spurs and Man United.
Yeah,
there is a risk. Spurs, Man United, I think, are at a better footing because they have a more stable bed to lie on. Just the sheer money United have, and then the good structure that Spurs have in place, that might be enough to carry them through the way it has previously. But Arsenal and Chelsea, given the transfer ban, given the flux that Chelsea are in, they're in trouble. And Arsenal, just in every aspect of the team, from ownership to the coaching, under Arsene Wenger, what's the name? Steve Bold, the assistant manager at Arsenal, he was the assistant manager. I don't know what his title is now, but he's still a first team coach at Arsenal. He would be raging up and down the touchline, screaming at the players. I haven't seen him do that once this season. He was like a defensive organizer and everything like that. It's always Emery. It's always Emery out there, and he's just Steve Bold sitting on the bench, unmoved. And it's it's that kind of body language change was like, what's going on? Because that guy is naturally very active, very communicative, very into his players' heads. That's his job, is to coach them. And now he's taking a backseat to that. And it makes you wonder, it's like, what's going on? Is this like a micromanaged type of thing that Emery is orchestrating? And if he is, it's gone terribly. And he can't get anything out of these players. And if what you're saying is true, that most of these players are still going to be there next year, it can't get any better.
Well, I think it's that's the note we're going to leave it on for Arsenal. We're going to move to Aston Villa now, who got promoted via the playoffs. We talked about Derby County there earlier. They lost the playoff final 2-1 to Aston Villa. The playoff final still like the weirdest game in football.
It's the £100 million game.
It's more. I remember it always being
you say that, but Huddersfield only made, I think, 100 million from their TV money this year.
No, they made way more than that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
maybe I'm just looking at the domestic money.
Nick Harris has on Twitter.
He has an infographic of.
He talked about how it's advertised as the £170 million game, but it actually stands to be 300 million as long as the team survives.
Because the parachute payments.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
But if you survive 1 year of the Premier League, it goes up to 300, and then it just keeps going up from there and there. So so it hasn't
helped any club who's gone down.
Well,
like Bolton Wanderers or Charlton Athletic.
I would say that if Huddersfield, the playoff final, a point he made as well, Nick Harris, and a point I want to make as well. And we talked about sliding door moments earlier with Mikel Arteta, but the playoff final, the Championship playoff final, might be the biggest sliding doors moment in football annually. It happens every year. Yeah. Like he brought up the really good point of Blackpool against West Ham in 2012, 2013, I can't remember which season it was, but they played and West Ham won, Blackpool lost, and Blackpool, had the whole thing with the Oyston family, who's a convicted rapist, and he is, who
nearly bought Manchester United at one point in his career.
Like, they went down to the 4th division. West Ham have been in the Premier League ever since.
Yeah.
If Blackpool win that match, who knows what they look like now. They could be still in the Premier League themselves. Yeah. They could have a different owner. They could have a lot more money involved. They could have a much happier. I'm sorry, Blackpool fans, if anyone's listening, for the world you missed out on. Yeah. And then West Ham, they might not have got in the London Stadium.
Yeah, Leyton Orient might have had a better argument.
Yeah, Tottenham even might have got in there or something. So it's a huge line of moment. It happens annually. Like Derby now have missed out.
Again,
I didn't think they deserved it. I think Aston Villa were the better team. Like
the
thing that you always hear about the playoff final is when a team like Aston Villa wins the playoff final, everyone says, "Oh, they're back where they belong now." Yeah. So there's a lot of debates over what's the ideal Premier League 20, and sticking Nottingham Forest and stuff like that. I was like, well, no, the teams that deserve to be in the Premier League are the
ones in it.
In it. Yeah. That's how that works. It's a pyramid for a reason.
Yeah.
Obviously history and romance is a part of football.
There's things. Leeds should be there. Nottingham Forest should be there.
Leeds were a great story this year, but they threw it. They threw it away. They blew it.
They blew it in the semi-final, second leg.
It was sad, but they have another year. Marcelo Bielsa signed a contract extension.
Hurrah!
So we'll have another year of Bielsa watch.
Yes.
So I do like Aston Villa. Like they have a big fan base here in Ireland as well because Paul McGrath and Steve Staunton back in the 90s.
Yes.
And they've been in the Premier League since it had began up until
European
they
Cup
went.
winners.
European Cup winners.
They're
one of the founding members of the English football league.
Yeah.
So, like, in a
huge club in the
sense,
Midlands,
yes.
Probably the big. I correct us because I don't know enough about it, but probably the biggest club in the Midlands.
Yeah, they're
biggest club in the second biggest city in the UK.
Yeah, they should be like they've won 7 league titles themselves. Like they're a hugely historic club. It is good to see them back.
Get to cup finals like every 10 years at least.
Yeah, I remember them almost qualifying for the Champions League under Martin O'Neill even just 10 years ago.
Yeah. Dave O'Leary finishing 5th or 6th, I think, at one point.
Yeah, Gerard Houllier even after that as well. Yeah. And then just Randy Lerner kind of ran them into the ground.
Yeah, well, you feel for him as well.
Yeah,
but you feel very much to the club. Like the club shouldn't have gone down in this poor way as they did. Like they just crashed and burned. What was his name? Remy Gard,
yeah.
After Tim Sherwood.
Tactics team, yeah.
So they're back now. They have spent some money. C. Bruce was close last season. This new manager, who
Smith.
I can never remember his name.
No one remembers his name.
Former Brentford manager.
No one remembers his name because everyone thinks John Terry's manager.
Yeah, but he isn't. But this guy uses a lot of sports science, a lot of data analytics.
He's an Aston Villa fan as well.
Yeah, which that's why he took the job. I think
that is why it's such a big moment as well because they're led as a manager by an Aston Villa fan. Jack Grealish is an Aston Villa fan. He's captain.
Who will
of the
now
side.
stay for the next season? You'd imagine.
You'd have to imagine.
Rather than go to the
Tottenham
likes
or something.
It's still possible, but I imagine if he's captain of the side, he'll give it one go because he's still a young man, and he could get into the England team easily through a good Premier League season.
Well, he has to get in there some point, or else it was a waste.
Yeah, true.
Just like Declan Rice. So yeah, it's good for Aston Villa. They have a nice stadium. Villa Park is a very historic ground as well.
It's fantastic ground.
Has a great aesthetic.
Yeah, and it's good to have a team from the Midlands. Like I know we have Wolves for the last season, but another team to.
And we've got Derby there now.
Yeah, and we're trying to move the league not just being a London-centric club with a couple of they're not small outlets in terms of Liverpool, Everton, Man United, Man City.
There's been a consistent through line there because Aston Villa were there for a long time. Then West Brom kind of came in.
Yeah,
Birmingham been in and out, so it is good to see a bit of representation there. Also, it's good for Aston Villa to have gone up just for that guy who punched Jack Grealish.
Yeah,
just a bit of karma.
Yeah, it was a nice cap to the end of the season, and it's a nice story that Aston Villa kind of recovered and came through it. And
I would back them to stay up.
Yeah, I think they would have they have a better chance than Derby would have had. I think because they'll probably have an increased fund to buy players than Derby County had. They'll probably use the loan system quite well again.
We'll know who their manager is.
Yeah, exactly.
But then in Italy as well, I want to bring up Italy because the Serie A season ended last Sunday rather, and the final day was some of the best football viewing I've had all season. Because there was 4 matches going on. Atalanta were playing a home game away from home against Sassuolo
due to their stadium reasons.
They're doing up their new stadium, or they're doing up the current stadium. Then Inter were at home against Empoli, who Inter were also trying to go for top 4 along with Atalanta, who were 3rd and 4th, and they're playing Empoli, who were about to go down if they didn't get a result. Then Fiorentina were playing Genoa; they were the other 2 teams that could go down. And then Spal were hosting AC Milan, who were the other team. And then meanwhile, Daniele De Rossi was off playing his final game for Roma, while Roma had a very, very outside chance of getting top 4. And then the whole way it went through, AC Milan took a very quick kind of 2-goal lead, while Atalanta went 1-0 down and Inter stayed 0-0. So that meant Milan were up to 3rd and Inter were 4th and Atalanta were 5th, so they kind of swapped the 2 places and Inter stayed where they were. And then then Sassuolo had a player sent off. Then Atalanta scored. Then it was half time. Atalanta had replaced Inter Milan. And then AC Milan conceded 2 goals very quickly. Atalanta scored to take the lead and Inter scored to take the lead. So in the space of 2 minutes, Milan were in 5th again and without any hope. But then Dragowski, the Empoli goalkeeper, saved an Icardi penalty that probably shouldn't have even been given. It took 5 minutes or so for the whole thing to be done because of VAR and whatnot. Atalanta scored again. So Dragowski saved that Icardi penalty. Then Empoli go up the other end a few minutes later, score, and Milan take the lead again. And then all of a sudden Milan are in 4th, Inter in 5th, and then Inter get another goal then to make it 2-1, and it's okay, this is just mental. Atalanta stay 3-1, they win that one 3-1. Milan win 3-2, and they need Empoli to score, and Empoli need to score to stay up because Fiorentina and Genoa are playing out a 0-0 draw, which suits both sides for them to stay up. So then Empoli pour everyone forward. They create multiple clear chances. They Handanovic had a really good game for Inter, saved their skin, and then the Dragowski, then the goalkeeper, went up for a corner, or maybe it was a free kick, and then Inter break away, and Brozovic thinks he scored from the halfway line, but Keita Balde fouls the goalkeeper in the build-up to the goal. He gets sent off. The goal gets overturned for VAR, and then the Dragowski goes back up for a free kick, and they get another clear-cut chance, but Handanovic catches it, saves it, and then boots it long, and then that was it. Inter Milan qualified 4th. Milan, without Champions League football again, looks like they might not even qualify for the Europa League because of financial fair play. Rino Gattuso has since resigned after 18 months because he thinks the stress has gotten to him too much. Luciano Spalletti was sacked today. Apparently he's actually been struggling with family issues the last 2 weeks, and our condolences to him for that. Which is why I think, because everyone's been kind of alluding to the fact that Antonio Conte is going to come in, and that's why Spalletti's been so reserved. But apparently that's actually to do with family issues. It does, though, look like Conte is going to come in. They've got Champions League football again, 2nd year in a row, which fair play to Spalletti for achieving. because Inter Milan before that hadn't been in Champions League for just as long as Milan nearly, considering they'd won it as well in 2010. It shows how far they'd fallen. And it looks like with Conte they might actually be able to challenge for the league next year, considering Juve are up in arms at the moment. They don't know who their manager is. Napoli are kind of just there. They look like they're going to sign Kieran Trippier for 25 million. What I'm trying to say is the last week of Serie A has been completely mental.
And all it means is Juventus win the league.
Yeah, and then, like, the funny thing is at the end of it all, it just finished the way it started at the start of the day.
No difference whatsoever was made.
Oh, it was just so funny, and it was so dramatic.
Yeah, there's a lot of change happening in Italy next season. We're going to have new managers almost to every big team.
I don't even know who's going to come in at Milan. I don't think they were expecting Gattuso.
We still don't know what's happening at Juventus.
Leonardo left as well.
Yeah.
And it looks like Maldini might leave as well. I've heard rumours that even Gazidis is going to link up with Arsene Wenger again, or Simone Inzaghi's going to come in or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is going to be a very wild summer. Especially, it'll be interesting as well, because if Milan do just take the fine or whatever it is, the ban from Europa League, they could be better off next season. Although it looks like they don't have much money to spend this summer. But they have a good core of youth there, and they still got Donnarumma.
Yeah,
who,
somehow
they gotta love Donnarumma.
It's the history of the Tottenham. We believe in the history.
So this is what it's all come down to: the defining moment of the season, the Champions League final. On our path to this destination, the likes of Dortmund, Bayern Munich, Manchester City, Porto, Ajax, and Barcelona have been conquered, thus only leaving two standing. Liverpool, 5 times winners and last season's runners-up, go toe-to-toe against Tottenham Hotspur, playing in their first ever European Cup final. Neither manager has won the Champions League. Jurgen Klopp has come close, having lost the final on 2 occasions. Is the third time lucky, or can Maurizio Pochettino win it on the first attempt?
This feels very ominous for me, because the last few years I've been thinking that not a chance Real Madrid can win this Champions League again, being so kind of flaky through the tournament, through a season, being so reliant on very specific players, and having such defined weaknesses in the team. They still manage to win every time against teams that, while not necessarily superior player for player, show that they were superior as a team throughout each of those seasons. Atletico, Juventus, Liverpool, all these teams that Real Madrid managed to beat. And then you come into this first final in 3 years without Real Madrid in it. You have the conquerors of Real Madrid in Tottenham, who beat Ajax, completely dysfunctional all season. Were missing some of their best players for some of their most defining games of the season. Players like Lucas Moura or Heung-min Son showing up where it accounted for the team, taking advantage of ridiculous situations such as Emerick Laporte not being able to defend for 20 minutes in a match in the second leg in the quarter-final, and just, I don't know what was going on in Ajax in the 93rd minute in that match, but Lucas Moura taking advantage of that.
The crazy thing, I was thinking about this last week, I don't think I mentioned this before, the crazy thing about that winner against Ajax is, obviously the Ajax players all fall to the floor, but the Tottenham players themselves are probably thinking, oh, I actually know what this feels like. But we're in the final now.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Because of VAR.
Yeah.
They had that exact same moment against Man City, but they got away with it.
Yeah.
So
it seems like what I'm trying to get at in that long soliloquy was that it seems that the gods are with Spurs in this. Somehow. And it's hard to say when you're against Liverpool, the historic team Liverpool, who beat Barcelona at home by, what was it? It was
4-0.
4-0 at Anfield, who powered through a difficult group in the end with Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, arguably the most difficult.
And did their duty in the knockout matches where they had a fairly easy run. But when them counted most, while getting a 97-point season, they still managed to destroy a Lionel Messi-powered Barcelona at home, and should be the best team in Europe this season, because they probably are, having done that to the league champions of Spain. And yet, you can't discount Spurs.
I actually come up with some kind of key questions with this match, because it's such a weird final. A couple of them are slightly facetious, but the first one I think is a pretty big one. Harry Kane.
Yeah.
He's declared himself fit.
He's going to play.
One
way or the other.
But do you think he starts, or do you think he comes off the bench?
If I were Spurs, I'd start him, because worst case scenario, it's Diego Costa in 2000 and whatever year that
14.
was, 14, coming off for Atletico in that match after a few minutes, having pulled up his hamstring. that's, or whatever this will be, breaking down, his ankle ligaments go, he's out for the Nations League. Oh no. That's the worst case scenario that could happen. Best case scenario, or next to worst case scenario, is he does nothing in the match, has to come off at some point, but the fact that he's there is enough of a psychological gain for Spurs that it does something in the match. That either the Liverpool defenders are suddenly more cautious than if they were just up against Lucas Moura or something, Young-Min Song, or whoever, Lorente or Vincent Janssen, whoever Spurs decide to start in the Champions League final. That's the alternative. And apart from that, again, the other alternative is that he plays somewhat well and scores a goal and does something in the match.
See,
they are the only three things that can happen. Because if he does break down after 2 minutes on the field and they have to take him off, nothing lost, nothing ventured, nothing gained. He's coming off. We got the psychological thing out of him at the very least. For the Liverpool players that have to think about it, because I don't think Harry Kane is a substitution player. He never really has been.
See, a week ago I probably would have said I'm definitely bench him, but I've been kind of inspired by Chelsea yesterday.
Yeah,
in N'Golo Kante,
who not doing a huge amount in the match, but just being there.
He lasted the full 90 minutes, and no one expected him to do so.
He didn't look very happy doing it.
And I'll tell you, Harry Kane will look happy if he's playing a Champions League final. Yeah. He's determined. We talked about Ewing theory here a few weeks ago with Matthias as well. That's an also interesting aspect.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't have said Ewing theory involves N'Golo Kante at all.
You wouldn't think that he would have had that influence, but he did, it seems.
But it is interesting. Like, they have played better without Kane.
Yeah.
So
play better, or just
they've gotten those results.
They've gotten results.
Like, he can kind of make them stodgy, two-dimensional.
It's just funny because Spurs are not a cup team, and it's time and time again in the Champions League, and this is what makes me think that I give the edge slightly to Liverpool, though I cannot discount Spurs, is that they're not a cup team. They've been poor in cups since Pochettino's taken over. They've only found, have they played well over 2 legs at all since they've been in Europe under Pochettino? I can't think of an example.
I think they played well against Juve last year, but
over 2 legs?
Over the 2 legs, they just got done by experience.
That's the history of the Tottenham. But I don't think they have. I think every time they've had 2 matches and basically they play bad in one and they recover in the other to come through. Every single time.
Well, I think against Man City they were fine in both matches. I think they
lost 4-3.
Yeah, but you can lose 4-3 and play well. They were the better team in that first leg. They deserved to win that 1-0, and then
they were not the better team in the second leg.
They just did enough to survive.
Mistakes. But I don't think they've done that.
But
and I think
it's one match. It's not.
But
2.
That's my point. Is that if they have that bad match, that's it. There's no comeback from that, and it's happened every time. There's been a one-off match that Pochettino's had to do something in, whether it's FA Cup semi-finals on a few occasions, League Cup matches, they failed. The League Cup semi-final this season against Chelsea, where they had the match in the palm of their hands, and they even went to penalties, and they could have won it on penalties.
The thing is, like Pochettino. Like, if their cup runs have always felt, we've won this match. Okay, well, I suppose we'll play the next match then, and if we lose that, whatever, and if we win it, whatever. Yeah. But with the Champions League, it's determination. It's the one they want to win. It's like he said. Pochettino has said, "I want to win the Champions League." Like he's
also said he's going to leave the club no matter what happens in this match.
Yeah, well, we can get to that
everyone's
later.
Just ignoring it. Everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Oh yeah,
maybe, there's all these jobs suddenly available.
He could go to AC Milan.
Yeah, he could.
So, like, when I go back and forth on this because, like, when it comes to teams that, like, who are the last few teams to have played their first Champions League final? Chelsea
won it, yeah.
No, but Chelsea lost.
Against
Manchester United.
Yeah.
Arsenal lost in 2006.
Yeah.
Valencia lost in 2000.
2001, yeah.
Bayer Leverkusen even was that their
2002.
first?
Oh yeah, it was.
Like that's their first. That's all those clubs' first European Cup. Monaco, 2004.
Yeah, lost.
Yeah, and even teams that took a big break, I think, didn't do too well.
No.
So like.
Bayern Munich, like for 10 years.
And then you look at teams that have been in back-to-back finals. You have Valencia who lost. Man United won one of those 2 that they were in. Granted, it was the first one. Bayern Munich won the second one.
Yeah.
And crucially, they won that second one in an all-German final. Yeah. Like that's the other thing about it as well.
Statistically, this is a very strange occurrence.
It's only happened 7 times. This is the 7th time it will happen. Only the second time with English sides. And in the previous 6 times it's happened, 3 times the better team in the league won, and 3 times they lost.
Yeah.
And
So there's no statistical trend to really follow. Everything is random.
And 3 of those have been decided on penalties as well.
Yeah.
Real Madrid, Man United, and Milan.
But what's all we can look back at is what's happened before. And in this case, since historically we don't have much of a trend, we can only look at this season. And this season, when Spurs have played Liverpool, they've been by far the weaker side.
But they were definitely the weaker side in their home match in Wembley.
Wembley, yeah.
But I think at Anfield they figured something out. I think they had a system working that I think could work for them again in this match, and they just got undone by Hugo Lloris making a stupid error.
But like, you're looking at them and you're like, where are they going to do something that's going to be enough to hold this Liverpool side at bay? Like, it reminds me of the Bayern Munich. Like, Bayern Munich are a top quality side. They won the league in Germany this year. They still have some fantastic players in their team, and they played well in the first leg at Anfield against Liverpool. They put Liverpool under pressure, and even in the first half of the second leg at home in the Allianz Arena, they put Liverpool under pressure. But eventually they buckled because Liverpool just were relentless, and they just kept going at them. It happened in Barcelona as well. And I don't see Spurs having enough in their defensive locker to hold off this Liverpool onslaught, because it is a team that's hungry. It's not like this is a team going for their second consecutive Champions League victory, or a team who's already won the league. This is a team that, like, if they don't do this, they may never win a trophy.
Yeah, and their whole season kind of just goes down the drain despite being so good.
Yeah, and if they do get it, suddenly they're legends. They're part of history. And
a 6th European Cup is a huge moment for Liverpool.
Jurgen Klopp, 7 consecutive finals he's lost now? Like 3 in Europe he's lost in a row. The Europa League and the 2 Champions League finals he's lost. You know, he's due to win something eventually. Like, none of those finals they lost because they were, this was Jurgen Klopp's absolute, like, mistake. Like we spoke about, like, Arsenal. Unai Emery failed to make any changes when you know, they conceded a goal, and maybe that led to them losing. But Jurgen Klopp has never made such a mistake in the 7 finals he's lost.
Yeah, but if
they've been unlucky in almost every one of them. Like, they're nearly there.
The thing is, actually, it's quite interesting because in 2013, obviously Dortmund, Bayern Munich, he was in the opposite position with Dortmund, where he was in the weaker of the two. Yeah. They'd come second to Bayern Munich's first. Yeah. Now they're ahead of Tottenham, second to fourth. But the thing is, in that Champions League final, it did kind of, like, it was 1-1 for a large period of that match. Like, there wasn't a huge gap between Bayern's goal and Dortmund's goal, so it was level most of that match. It was pretty even contest. You know, Dortmund were lying in wait to kind of spring their counter-attacking trap that they had, and Dortmund or Bayern were kind of dominating the game.
Yeah.
And then, like, it was playing out like it would in the league, and then Jupp Heynckes kind of came up with the idea of dropping Javi Martinez back, giving them a bit more defensive solidity, and giving up the midfield that bit more, giving Dortmund a bit more of the ball, and Dortmund not knowing what to do with it.
Yeah.
And that ultimately led to Bayern having this kind of relentless pressure at the end that told when the goal was scored.
Yeah. So couldn't cope.
It shows that if you can come up with something, just even if you just think of it in the moment, in a final, the fact that the matches can kind of play out as they would do in a league sense, if you can just come up with that one thing that you haven't done before, it can be so crucial because it's a cup final. Because normally, if you come up with something, say in the first league game, the next manager's thinking about that in the second league game, and then that's the 3 points have gone either way, and it's pretty even in the end. And means nothing. Yeah. But in a Champions League final, if you come up with that one plan, that one idea, and you execute it, you've won the Champions League.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but then you have to come back to a realistic thing, though. It's where is the Spurs team right now? They've had a long season. I know they've had 3 weeks to prepare for this,
and it's almost like a pre-season.
It is, yeah. But Liverpool have had those 3 weeks as well, so it's not.
And I hope it means that both teams are fit and ready for this match.
Yeah, but that's my worry. Is like Liverpool have had a bigger squad for the whole season. Like there's wear and tear that Spurs have. Like Harry Kane, obviously we've spoken about, but there's other players in there that have probably been walking wounded. Vertonghen, like Lloris at times this season.
Harry Winks if he plays.
Yeah, Harry Winks obviously been out for a lot of the season. Different players throughout the whole, like Wanyama obviously was out for a year. Whether he'll play in the final, we don't know. Like there's a lot of players who've had a lot of minutes in their hands, and if they don't have a lot of minutes, they've had a lot of injuries on their hands. Against a Liverpool side who's been fairly consistent all year. Like, and if anything, have players who have been absent the whole season coming back now. Like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain could well play in the Champions League final. which would be a huge boost for to battle, to counteract that, what you're saying of countering a team that was willing to cede possession to Liverpool, if that is the way Spurs actually decide to go down against a Jurgen Klopp side. Like someone like Chamberlain is someone that who can create something, or at least get the ball moving forward, which is something that maybe that Dortmund side lacked in Ilkay Gundogan. And that could be an impetus enough for Liverpool to go on and win the team, to win the tournament. Like, I can't really see beyond Liverpool realistically winning this title. I'm not ruling out Spurs doing it entirely. I still think they have that chance for the reasons that we discussed earlier. But this Liverpool team has everything that is required of a Champions League winning side. They have a solid goalkeeper now, which they didn't have last season. They have a solid, well-worked, battle-hardened defence, which they didn't have last season. Like, Dejan Lovren will be nowhere near this match.
Hopefully.
Well, for Liverpool's sake, hopefully. But they have options. It's not even that he'll be nowhere near the match, but they'll have, like, Trent Alexander-Arnold could play, Joe Gomez could play, Matip could play,
Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain could play,
Andy Robertson could play. You know,
he will.
He will. No, but of those, you know, obviously, I imagine it's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold, Matip, Virgil van Dijk, and Robertson. But Joe Gomez could easily slot into that defence, no problem at all. And would they be weaker for it? Maybe not. You know, if that's what if they want to counter-attack Harry Kane, for instance, Joe Gomez would be a good person to just maybe drop Trent Alexander-Arnold for and put Joe Gomez.
Well, they could put him alongside Van Dijk as well.
Exactly, that's the other option. And in midfield, they're so settled. They know what they're doing. Suddenly, Jordan Henderson has this number 8 role that he's taken on great, running up and down the field, doing stuff. They have defensive solidity in Fabinho. Like, what's the story with Keita?
He's out.
He's completely gone.
He's out, yeah.
Yeah, so Keita's gone, but Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's back in potentially. But they also have James Milner or the other fellow that I can, Victor Wijnaldum. They're also there. And then Genie Victor. Right?
You're thinking of Victor Wanyama.
Oh, Victor Wanyama. And then up front, they have the strikers are all available and fit, and you have Plan B options on the bench. You have Daniel Sturridge, who scored in the European final before.
Divock Origi,
who's just that wrecking ball they throw on to just create havoc and confusion in defence. They have everything. Like, we haven't talked about Firmino, Salah, or Sadio Mane.
Wait, when did Daniel Sturridge score in the European Cup final?
In the Europa League.
Right, okay.
Final.
I thought you meant the Champions League final.
No, he scored a really good goal in the Europa League, I think.
Oh, okay.
When they lost
to Sevilla, yeah.
To Sevilla, but like. There's players with a lot of experience throughout that squad, and then you're looking against Spurs, and you're like, you know, it's easy enough to name their side as well, but you're like, who can you rely on in that team? Like, I don't think there's any in those 11 that I like. If that were the 11, I don't see any weak links in that team that you're like, we can get at him. Like, maybe Joel Matip if you keep him on the ball for a long enough time, but he probably isn't going to hold on to that ball for very long. Who else? Maybe if Chamberlain, Wijnaldum, one of those type of players could let you down. I don't think Henderson's going to be in a position playing a number 8 if he's playing up and down as a box-to-box midfielder. He's not going to be in a position to let you down. James Milner, I don't think is going to let you down, and obviously I don't think the front 3 are going to let you down.
But what about then in terms of the actual match? Because I feel like we're in a post France-Croatia world now, where that played out like no other final I remember, like major final I remember watching, where all of a sudden just France were scoring. Like, normally when you think of a final, you think, oh, the first team to score will probably win this 1-0 or maybe 2-0 if they get a late second. Yeah. But France scored, then Croatia scored. Both goals were pretty early. Yeah. Then France just had a blitz, and then Croatia got another one. Like, it was a bit like, oh, these teams can actually score multiple goals. Like, we haven't seen a Champions League final since Istanbul, where both teams scored twice in 120 minutes. I
think we'll be in Istanbul next season again before... we see both.
So you don't think both teams will score twice? So
I think it'll be a tight affair.
A 2-1, 1-0 kind of.
I think it still will. I don't see, like, unless there is a collapse, and the only collapse I could see would be from the Spurs side. Like, I'm not saying Spurs can't win, but if Spurs win, it'll be a very tight affair. It'll be 1-0, 2-1, that type of thing, or penalties or something like that. But if Liverpool potentially could rattle a few goals past, but even then, I give the low probability. This will be a tight affair throughout. Even if Liverpool take an early lead or something like that, I think it'll grind this match. There'll be a lot of physicality in this match. There'll be a lot of... Because they should be relatively fresh, so there's going to be an awful lot of running. Even though it's in Madrid, it'll be warm. Like, It's not the easiest final to call of the last few years, when you always kind of like felt Real Madrid were the better side or were the most experienced side and the likely side to win, and even Barcelona for the that year in the middle that Barcelona won. Like, you always kind of felt, okay, the bigger side will win. This one, you don't really have a monumental gap between the two teams in terms of their ability and in terms of their likeliness, they've brought to the tournament to get to the final. But you have to say Liverpool are the better team, so you would expect them to win. You give them the benefit of the doubt.
So just moving forward as well, like obviously it's been 11 years since Moscow and Man United played Chelsea in the first All-English final. Yeah. That I feel like in 2008 it was a bit more predictable to think that you could get an All-English final. Like, there were 4 teams in the quarterfinals, but they were like, Man United had Cristiano Ronaldo, that Chelsea side had, a spine that would go on to win.
Yeah, Terry, Lampard.
Yeah, and Man United didn't have a bad team either.
No.
Obviously they won the league that year. So it was like, when those two teams got to the final, it wasn't a big surprise in a way that I feel like it kind of is this year, that both teams got to this final. Like, even going into the second legs, we were expecting this to be an Ajax-Barcelona final.
Yeah.
And we've ended up with the complete opposite. So do you think it's possible, like, we've got another 4 English teams next year, not 5, but like we've got 3 solid teams in Chelsea. Like, Man City are clearly one of the best sides in Europe. This Liverpool side don't look like they're going to wilt away, especially not in Europe.
Not yet. Yeah.
And well, Tottenham's a little more difficult to predict. But do you think will this be the beginning of a trend of at least one English team in the final over the next several years? Or at least few.
At least one. Yeah, I think they're again, it's a cup competition. It all depends on draws and how things play out, because if there were different teams in the semi-finals, it could have been a very, if the draw had been different in the semi-finals, we mightn't have any English teams in the final, just the way it worked out in the end. I think there could be a time. I don't think anyone outside of Liverpool or Man City are in that.
Like, Liverpool now have done 2 in a row themselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's they've proven that that's possible. And Man City have, they've made it. It's no secret that next season, and this season to a large extent, but certainly next season, I think they will be willing to sacrifice the league performance to do well in the Champions League. And I think it will be a clear priority next season for Pep Guardiola, if he remains at Man City, to go after that Champions League title. And so I do think it's possible. But you bring up an interesting point that it's been 10 years since the All English final between Man United and Chelsea, and that kind of there was a dominant period there where every year there was an English club in the final.
Yeah, like 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2010, 2009, 2011,
and you had semi-final appearances all along that way as well, which is something that wasn't there in the 90s.
That's 1 year in 8 that they don't get to a final there in 2010.
Yep.
And that's actually, it happened in the 70s as well. 77, 82 I think was the period where we saw it. So this is
basically an English winner every year.
Yeah, it actually was. Yeah. So like, and there was a finalist in 75 as well, 76. So similar length of time. Like, it is cyclical in that way. Like, but obviously the cycles come around a little quicker again, and a lot of that's to do with the money being put into the Premier League, because that's just how inflation works.
Yeah.
So do you think this is we're kind of in the midpoint of another cycle, at the beginning of another cycle?
It could be a beginning of another cycle, because of what you're saying, because of the money flowing through the system, but also where I think what's preserving, like, say, Liverpool in this position, because they're not one of the greatest sides in European history. Like, you'd say a lot of teams that would get to consecutive finals would be one of the, they would be notable sides in the history of the club, if not in Europe in general, like that Man United, Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez team. That team you talk about in 2008, 2009 got to consecutive finals, or obviously the Real Madrid side,
or even Valencia,
that's an era-defining team for that club. And I don't think this is for Liverpool. I think it's a very strong side. I think it's a very good team, but I don't think this is going down the annals of Liverpool yet.
It helps that they have a very great history, it does. Just through Istanbul.
Yeah, but even Spurs getting to this final, like, they will obviously go down history if they win this final. But if they don't, you're like, was this a very great Spurs team in the history of Tottenham Hotspur? I don't know. If they win, it will obviously be.
They'll be amongst them, but but they need to win to be definitive.
Yeah, to even qualify to be in that realm, they have to do it. And in the years to come, will the teams that will get to the finals, if it is like I think Man City or Liverpool that will get to another finals, is it a case that they're the best of their era, of the club itself? And I was like, I don't know about that. But that is because other teams in Europe are wilting, as you're saying. If Liverpool aren't wilting, the likes of Real Madrid are. that's proven this season. Barcelona clearly are. They lost the Spanish Cup final to Valencia.
But the thing is, then though, like we say, those teams are kind of in a downward trend, and we've criticised them heavily this season.
Yeah.
But it feels like this is to some extent for both clubs, but especially for Tottenham. This is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like it's not going to open up for them again.
This is it. Like they will not get to, like, I don't want to say anything on it, but they will not get to another Champions League semi-final next year.
Not in this cycle, I don't think. Not with this squad.
No.
Like obviously 10 years down the line, we know.
Oh yeah. But next season or the season after, they're not coming near this position.
Because like, just look at the teams that are going to spend. Juve have a new manager. They'll probably spend a bit of money. Barcelona looks like they might have a new manager. They're going to spend. They already are spending money.
On clever signings.
Yeah, and Real Madrid are going to spend.
Yes.
Bayern Munich are going to spend.
Yes.
Like, these are the heavy giants of European football.
They're
PSG
all
are
rebuilding.
going to spend.
Yeah.
Man City look like they're going to
Man
spend.
United,
Well, Man United won't be in the Champions League. But
no, but you'd imagine, unless something does go wrong with Solskjaer, which I expect it will, they will be in a year's time.
Yeah, so it does feel like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, a last chance for Tottenham, even if it's only a first chance.
Yeah.
Like Liverpool, Klopp has yet to lose a two-legged affair for Liverpool in European competition, so he could just keep getting to finals the way things are going. So to a lesser extent, it's a great opportunity for Liverpool as well. And it's been a while since we've had a final where it felt like a real opportunity for history for both clubs in the final. Because like Real Madrid have plenty of history.
Yeah.
Atletico Madrid obviously was a great moment for them.
It was an option, but we never really...
Juve, Barcelona,
these are the titans of European football.
Yeah,
that's not to say Liverpool aren't, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Spurs, certainly, it's been forever.
Like, you'd almost say that this Champions League final is closest to 2004.
Yeah, when you have two of teams that you would not necessarily expect. Like, who would have thought that going into the Champions League final in 2004, that Porto would be the favourites to win the tournament?
Yeah.
Like, and that's where we are at Liverpool. It's like, Liverpool got to the final last season. That was exceptionally, good, and they kind of had a good draw last season.
Yeah.
But this season they've had to beat Bayern Munich. They've had to beat
Napoli, PSG as well.
Yeah, Napoli, PSG, and Barcelona along the way. It's not like they've made it hard. They've made it easy for themselves or had an easy look. And now they've got the kind of the reward of Spurs in the final, which isn't the hardest thing to come against. But strange things have happened in history.
Yeah, as Eden Hazard said, football, you never know in football.
You never know. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, Pochettino might say something similar, so after BT better get quick on...
they'll be on him.
Yeah, they'll be on him. So I look forward to this Champions League final is one of the great nights of the sporting calendar, let alone football.
Is it?
Champions League final is always good. It was great last year. I very much enjoyed myself last year, and it's
well, we see Gareth Bale scoring again.
Yeah, like last year was a great Champions League final. Obviously, not if you're Loris Karius.
Yeah, Loris Karius or any Liverpool fans would not have enjoyed Loris Karius having his moments.
But yeah, like it's not often the Champions League final has those kind of moments.
Yeah,
even the year before, Mandzukic scored that great goal, even though they lost.
Yeah. Poor Mandzukic. Just, I know he's won the Champions League, but like,
just generally,
I don't remember Mandzukic's goal anymore because Gareth Bale scored two better ones.
Yeah.
Poor
Mandzukic. So I feel like the Champions League has kind of lived up to expectations the last few years, even when it was not as good.
Yeah.
Like back when Real Madrid and Atletico first met, that was still a decent enough Champions League final. It wasn't necessarily a decent match.
Yeah.
It had this is usually drama. The Champions League this season has been filled with drama, so hopefully the final can be a nice cap to all of that.
Hopefully.
And I think that covers everything. Is there any last minute do you want to predict a score?
I will say 2-0. 2-1 to Liverpool.
2-1. Like, give me goal scorers. Who's scoring the winning goal?
Jordan Henderson
with a winning goal in the European Cup final. I'm really undecided. I think this could go to penalties.
Could well. I don't think it will.
1-1.
I think the hot weather will play into it a bit. I know they've had 3 weeks of basically a pre-season, but it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid.
Well, Liverpool have been in Marbella.
I know, well, for a good reason.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot and it's going to be humid, and there's going to be a lot of running between these two sides who like outrunning the opposition. So I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe break records for running stats in this final, but I don't necessarily think that'll lead to great football.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to go 1-1, kind of similar enough to Moscow.
And who to win?
Who would win on penalties?
I think it's pretty obvious who to win on penalties. There's I think only one of them gone to penalties so far this season. They lost them.
Yeah, they did lose, but I don't know how many of those players would actually take penalties in this shootout either.
All of them.
No, I don't think.
Kieran Trippier to lose.
Didn't Victor Wanyama take one of those penalties?
Yeah,
I
think he could do it again.
I don't know about that. Liverpool. Well, I don't remember. Liverpool obviously won penalties at Istanbul. Maybe that'll.
Yeah.
Like I think history of penalties.
Absolutely, Alisson Becker doing the spaghetti legs.
Yeah, that he would definitely do those.
He would, even though he's a big man, so it wouldn't really look as natural as when Bruce Grobbler or Jerzy Dudek did it.
Oh yeah, Dudek did it as well.
They're very stringy players anyway. Becker's a big, chunky man.
The history of Liverpool winning another European Cup on penalties. That's what I'll go for.
Okay.
I think that's it. We'll review the final again and probably the Champions League season as a whole next week. Probably Monday. Probably, and we might delve into some of those transfer rumours, see what's going on with Antoine Griezmann and
or Arsene Wenger nutmegging Zinedine Zidane.
Yeah, stuff like that. we didn't get to mention Jaap Stam, who was an absolute monster in a Man United match against Bayern Munich.
Jonathan Green getting an assist.
One of the things I loved about that match actually is they brought back Raymond van der Gaal.
Oh God, poor Raymond van der Gaal.
Yeah, who just was there.
Did Roy Keane play in that?
No,
he wouldn't go near it.
No, I think he didn't go. I think he was doing something with Nottingham. So,
okay.
I think that's why he didn't play. Ryan Giggs didn't play either because he's
in Wales.
Yeah, he's doing stuff with Wales.
National football. Yeah.
Louis Saha played, which is my favourite thing.
Scored a goal.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer scored, of course, the Man United manager.
Yeah.
Alex Ferguson was there. David Beckham was.
Lothar Matthäus was there.
Yeah, I don't get why Lothar Matthäus played and Simon Kuffour played as well.
Because they were playing in '99.
Yeah, I just don't get though. Like, why relive the most traumatic night of your playing career?
Well, in fairness to Lothar Matthäus, didn't he lose 2 World Cup finals as well?
True.
Or at least 1 World Cup final.
Also, if there's any Man United fans listening, there was actually a really good Rob Smythe piece on the treble that I would recommend. I read through that. That was pretty good. Some good anecdotes on there. There's a good quote from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that was like, "I'm a humble man, but I would say I'm one of the greatest finishers of all time." It's like,
okay.
I think that's from '99. I think so. It was quite funny. It was from after.
Yeah.
We'll figure out what we'll talk about on Monday.
Yeah.
Hopefully the Champions League final lives up to expectations.
Hopefully this ending lives up to Lord of the Rings ending.
Yeah.
In its length and.
Is there any other tangents you'd like to throw out there?
I don't know now. What else could we speak about? La 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 la.
La, la. Anyway, thanks for being here, Andrew.
Thank you.
And enjoy your Champions League final, and we'll be back again next week. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget you can tell family and friends about the show. Spread the word of the Total Football Takeover. You can also follow us on social media at the TF Pod on Twitter and Total Football Pod on Instagram. We can also be found on podcast services including Spotify by searching Total Football Podcast. The more the merrier. That's what we always say.